Hiya. In this video I'm going to go over some more painting. This is entirely optional. I'm just going to work my way through painting my character, so you can watch if you like. It doesn't really matter, you might pick up a few tips, but I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to record it anyway. I'm going to have got painting my shirt, so this is the actual shirt I'm going to paint. And as you can see, it's a little bit different to what I thought it was in terms of colour. So it's slightly more muted blue. So I'm going to try and mix that colour, and then I've got a little bit of a pattern on the shirt, so I'm going to try and replicate that and add a little bit of detailing around the sleeves and the stitching on the arm. So I want to give that a little go, you know, as we've got sort of, you know, stitching detail and stuff, and try and make it look a bit more interesting. The other thing I have done for myself is I've changed this to a 4K map, and the reason I've done that is I want to use this model for something else and render it, so I wanted it to be a little bit more detailed. But if I was using it as an animated or game asset, I'd probably leave it at the 2K image. So I've got that flexibility to scale it down a bit. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and try and get a little bit better colour. So it's a little bit greener than what I've got, and it's also a bit darker and a bit greyer. So I'm just going to see what that looks like. So I'm going for something like this. So that's definitely closer, and to be honest, I think for this it's probably fine. Maybe it's a tiny bit lighter. Let's try that. That's actually darker. Tiny bit lighter, and yeah, I'm going to go with that. It's actually going to look different on different monitors unless you've got a nicely calibrated monitor. So my drawing tablet is fairly accurate, but my monitor I'm looking at, it does look a bit different, so we'll go with this, I think. So the first thing I'm going to do is save that colour, because I'm going to need that quite a bit. So that's that one there, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually remove those other two blues, because I don't think I'm going to need them, and I'm going to remove some of those browns as well. I just want that base shoe colour. So I'm going to keep that blue, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just put a bit of shading in first, where I think a bit of natural shading will occur, and I'm going to try and put in some stitching detail. So let's make it very slightly darker, and then let's have a smallish brush. I'm going to turn on pressure sensitivity because I've got a pressure sensitive brush here. Now I've actually just done a mistake that I always do, and that's leave it on the fill tool. So let's just, I want to come into this area here and just put in just a little bit of shading under this arm. Now that probably is a bit too strong, and that's because I didn't turn the strength down. So turning strength down is a good idea. That's a bit desaturated, but I think that will probably be okay. Let me choose that blue again. So as I bring the colour down, I'm going to just slightly increase the saturation, because it just doesn't look quite right. I'm going to go back over that. So I'm just going to shade under the arm a little bit, because it's naturally going to be darker, and even if we're using a lit shading model, it's definitely going to be darker under there, even if it's just a bit. So it's just giving me a bit of form to work through, so I can see what's going on. Right, for this shirt, the other problem I might have is I might encounter a problem because it's mirrored, and I might actually want to not mirror this mesh, but for now I think I'm going to leave it. I'm going to see if I can very carefully mark a center line. Yeah, I can see we're going to have an issue. Let me make that radius a bit smaller, and let me make it a bit darker, and see if I can get a line roughly down the middle. There we go. That's not terrible. I can cope with that. But if I do paint a line on this side, it is going to go onto the other side and look a bit weird. So I might end up going into this and making it so it's not mirrored. So I think what I might just do is go ahead and try and put some of these markings on. So I'm going to start with my blue, and the markings are not white. They look quite pale, but they're actually fairly desaturated pale blue, grey colour. So I'm going to go with that. And they look like a mixture of, let me just turn the strength up. They look like a mixture of hash and star shapes. So I'm just going to go around and put some of these markings on, fairly at random, to be honest. And they're not perfect shapes either. They are quite organic. What I am trying to do, however, is think about the direction of the form so that I'm tilting them round as they go, and I'm trying to spread them out fairly evenly. They do have this sort of multi-toned effect where the stitching crosses over, so as I actually paint and get this extra white bit in the middle, that's actually how it is, so that's really useful. So as we can see, we're just getting some in. I'm not going to put in so many that like the actual one, because I think it would just be over the top. So I'm just going around. I'm using an XP pen tablet. You can use any graphics tablet. I've just accidentally picked the colour there. I don't think, yeah, that's okay. I'm using an XP pen tablet, and I'm using a wheel to zoom in, and I'm using some buttons to simulate the mouse so I can orbit around my model, and I can press 2 buttons to pan across, so it's quite useful. So I'm just putting in a little bit of detail on this shirt, just to give it a bit of a, character, really, essentially. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the sleeve, I think, on the cuff, just so I can start seeing how it would look. Now, I've got this problem again where I can't see the edges, so if I go into shaded mode, I can just see where these edges are, and I'm going to use, going back to the blue, I'm going to get a darker colour, and I'm going to try and get quite close to that edge, just here, where it would naturally be darker, and go round. So just here, and once I've got a bit of this in, I'll be able to do it. So that's where it's naturally darker. Go back to my blue, and then I want a naturally lighter colour, so I'm going to go around, seeing if I can get on that edge a bit lighter. Right, I'm going to put it back on flat shaded mode. I prefer flat shaded mode, to be honest. I like the look of hand painted textures, so I'm just going to go all the way around here. I have done this quite messily, but I will be tidying it up. Whoa. So I'm just going to eyeball this. Yeah, I'm going clipping into the model. So you can see the sort of effect this is going to create. That's actually a bit better than how I started off. Choose that, go down, and then I'm going to just do that darker section inside here. Yeah, I didn't do a very good job of it initially, but I can tidy that up. So try and that's better. That's better. Yeah, there we go. So you can see how it's starting to come out, and then I can go back. Whoa, I can undo that. I've got an undo button as well on the graphics tablet, which is nice. Go back to this colour and just start tidying that up. I don't mind if it looks a little bit you know, like some of these markings, because that's the other thing. We are going to have some natural variation because it's fabric and it's creased. So maybe I ought to put a bit of that in. If I start increasing the radius, ooh, that is way too big. I think I meant it to be about there. Yeah, start putting in a bit of natural variation. Don't want to go crazy. Now I think that needs to be a little bit more desaturated. It just doesn't quite look right. And then perhaps to go with it, it needs a little bit of dark, because when you get a crease, you're going to get a light part and a dark part. And I'm just making this up really. Let's put in some more of those markings. So let me press S on my keyboard and sample that grey colour. Go back down to a size 10 and back up in the strength, and let's see if we can get some more of these markings in. They do overlap on the cuff, if you can see that. They do overlap onto here, and as you can see, they're not to scale. They're not to scale how they would actually be. They are just sort of an indication of what they might be like. And I'm putting some on the edge here to make it look like it's folding round, and it's those little details that can make it look more interesting, as though it is real fabric. So pay attention to the design and how you want it to look. So yeah, if you've got an area that's going in, you can almost indicate it with the way you are drawing the textures, like it's flowing into a crease or a crevice. So textures are good for that. They can actually indicate the shape a little bit. So bear that in mind. Whoa. What have I done? I'm upside down. Whoa, come back. Let me have a look where we are. That's it. I've lost myself. Right, there we go. So we're starting to get a bit of shape and so on. Let's have a look at this cuff again. So on this cuff, I mean, it's not even remotely realistic in terms of how big it actually is. It's much bigger. Again, I'm just going to desaturate. I'm going to increase the saturation. I'm going to just draw in a little. No, I don't like that. That does not look right at all. Go back to that. going to increase my strength. There we go. What I'm going for here is sort of a break in the cuff, and then I want a lighter colour to go round like that. And I think it's got a little button on it. Yeah, it has, which is a sort of fairly it's a fairly grey colour, to be honest. Yeah, let's have it like that. Maybe more grey. Otherwise, it's actually quite dark. Yeah, let's just put it there like that. It's actually darker on the outside than it is on the inside. We've got definitely a bit of shading round it where it's pulling in the fabric into a... And then, interestingly enough, we've got... Zoom in here. This is where painting it on the flat texture might be useful. Probably at the limit of the map. Oops. Of the map here, really, in terms of what we can do. But in the button, we've got 4 holes. So if I go to black, you will see that black is... It looked dark before, but it's definitely black. And then we've actually got a very light thread colour. And I'm not going to go to white, even though it probably is white thread. And I'm actually going to go down to 5 pixels for this. And I'm just going to indicate some threads on this button. And that's probably about the limit of what we can actually do. Sometimes putting more detail on makes it worse because it looks out of proportion to everything else that you're doing. So I think we need some sort of edge on this button because it's hard to define. There we go. That's a bit weird, but I think it just needs something to just give it the appearance of depth. I don't like that. Just gone over the edge a bit. Just give it the appearance of depth, even though it doesn't really have much. Right, I think that will do for that. I'll go back to my blue. And maybe that's a bit dark there. Go back up to 10 pixels. You can do this with the tablet, change the size, but I have to change the mode, and I'm just going to leave it as it is. Right, let's start getting some of this darker in here. As you can see, I'm not being particularly neat about this. It's the overall effect you need, not really super neat pieces in isolation. Work on the whole thing if you can. Otherwise, because it's the whole effect you're going for, and it will look different as you zoom in at different resolutions, so you might need to keep zooming in and out and checking what it looks like. But we're starting to get a bit of a shirt going on now. It does look a bit weird the way I've painted it. I might have to adjust the thickness of that collar on the model to make it right, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So just for the next few minutes then, I'm going to go back, do the same thing, a darker color, maybe a bit of, and just maybe 20 pixels but a low strength, and just start making a bit of a shadow on there, underneath, maybe even under the neck. Like, we're getting some you know, weird artifacts going on here. I might leave the arms mirrored, but separate out the vertices on this very small front shirt piece and just make that a separate small piece, I think, and that's going to make it look so much better because it won't be mirrored. I don't think it matters on the arms too much, but on the front of this shirt it does. So I'm going to leave it there, but then I'm going to cut that bit out and UV that area. I'm going to leave the rest of the model the same, but on the area I'm going to just change it a bit. Right, so what have we got next? Let's have a look at this waistcoat. So let me get my mouse off the other screen. So if I go back into edit mode and click on the waistcoat and press L, I should be able to select all the waistcoat. Oh, I didn't do that. Yeah, I'm not doing that bit because I don't want it to be symmetrical. So I'll do the waistcoat bit there, I think, and then I'll do the badge, the pocket, separately. So let's go back into texture paint mode. I don't really need that other window, to be honest. And then here I've got my waistcoat. So you can see it's actually quite a dark blue colour. It's not quite at all like I've actually done it, and it's got some bright stitching. So it definitely is blue, but it is much darker than what I've initially painted it. And I've dropped my pen somewhere down here. Okay, so let's see if we can quickly change this blue. So let's start with the blue of the jacket. It's definitely darker, much darker, and see how that looks. So I'm going to go back to my paint can. Yeah, it definitely, it's a tad darker than that. Yeah, I think, and it's not as blue, so I'm just going to move that inwards. That's better. So it's a little bit more neutral. Maybe even a touch greener. Okay, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. So let's go with that. So I'm going to add that colour to my colour palette, and that will be the base colour. Make sure I go back into brush mode. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, and then I think what I'm going to do here, and I might have to make some extra geometry for this, I'm just going to make the radius 10 and the strength quite high and the colour a bit more pronounced. I'm going to try and draw the collar, but I don't want it to go over the pocket because that will spoil the illusion. So I think maybe to there will be fine. If I do it quite lightly, I can use that as a shadow, and then I can sharpen it up. So let's see about that. I am keeping it quite sketchy because this material is quite well, it is quite sketchy. So let me just make sure I've got that right colour. Okay, let's make it lighter, and let's see if we can bring out the edge. Now my waistcoat has a green part to it as well, so what I might do, see if I can push that into the greens but keep it at the same tone. It's quite a it's a very greyish green. In fact, it's right over there. I think it's probably about there, but it is quite dark. Yeah, that's better. Sort of an olive green, a desaturated olive green. And that comes from here. And it comes down. So let me get the strength up, because this literally needs colouring in. So there we go. That's that part shaded in. This fabric, to get this sort of herringbone effect, I think what we're going to have to do, go back to the main colour, have a very, very slightly darker blue, and I mean only just a bit darker, and have a very small radius brush, and maybe experiment with putting some bits of texture on it. And again, I'm not going to put all the texture on, but there's some definite lines. Maybe that needs to be a bit higher. There are some definite lines, and then there are some like diagonal markings where we've got some texture. And I suppose it would be like the way you might paint a house. You might not paint every single brick, but if there are a few bricks that seem to really stand out to you, you might want to indicate those in. So I'm just going to try and indicate a little bit of texture and go back and do the same thing, but with a light brush. And this might not look right at all, and I might have to go over it and try another approach. I guess what I'm going to try and do is fill it with some texture, and I might have to get a reference, a photograph of this material, and then just have a look the best way I can recreate it. It might even be I can use the real texture. I think I'm probably just going to go for a load of hatching, to be honest, putting more and more lines on and just giving it the appearance of some texture, and then every now and again make a specific pattern where it's a bit more prominent. I think I'm just going to do that and create the sensation of it being there. Right, I'm going to draw this video to a close in a minute. I just wanted to tackle some of this on here. Let's get that colour. Now there's a red part on here, and I'm going to try and stick to the same tone so it doesn't stand out too much. Can't believe that's gone down to 1. I didn't realise it had. But again, rather than painting a solid line, I'm going to just paint it intermittently to suggest that it's being broken up by the fabric. And we've got this dark browny coloured. That's way too saturated. And I'm just literally indicating the sort of pattern that it might have, rather than being specific. Keep it a bit broken up. Maybe some of these markings need to be thicker. We'll see. Maybe it just needs to be a bit rougher in general. A bit more pronounced. That's better. And then I've got bits of random weird stitching that's quite a lot more saturated, just to give it a bit of sort of detail. So again, we're trying to create the illusion of a material, a feeling, rather than an exact replica. We don't want to we don't want to be drawing it exactly. We're sort of trying to recreate the feeling of what the material is rather than the actual material itself, rather than, you know, trying to get over the details in. So I'm being deliberately very, very rough with this because I feel like this material is quite haphazard, quite fluffy and textured, rather than, I think having nice neat edges would lose its character. So we've got some buttonholes as well, so they would be darker but they would have a lighter edge, especially on the bottom where the light's hitting it from you know, underneath, like that. So again, we've got a lot of mirroring which we may not want, so we'll just have to see how that goes. I'm painting with the same colour, that's not a good idea, never is. Probably a bit bigger brush, that's it. Just making that generally a bit lighter on that bottom edge, and again I don't want it to just put bits of random colour in, give it a bit, break up that flatness, yeah. And I'll probably put some more texture on that bit, but you can see how it's starting to, you know, get some character to it, and when you zoom out, you know, it looks, you've got a lot more texture than what you initially thought perhaps. So I'm going to keep working on that, and what I'll probably do is I'll keep working on all different parts a little bit at a time and getting a feel for how the parts are relating to each other. I don't want to go into massive detail on one part individually. So let's have a look how this looks. Get my mouse onto this screen. I'm just going to save this image. Save. I keep forgetting to tell you to do that in the video. You can see the texture, look how it's looking. And you could actually take this into Photoshop, and I might actually go over this a little bit because this bit's a bit rubbish, and see if I can improve that. And again with the boot, you can see how it's sort of translated into 2D, and you could actually go into this and, you know, you could layer some textures over the top and, you know, use different layer blending modes. And again here you could paint into this, and it might be easier to do part of it on here when you've got all the main features you require. So that's another option for you. So yeah, let's go into object mode and see how we're starting to look. So yeah, trousers are a bit bright. But yeah, that's definitely the effect I wanted. I don't want it to look photorealistic. I just want it to be a sort of caricatured version of what I'd wear. Obviously with the patch it looks a bit weird. I need to make that dark and put these materials on. But I hope that was useful in giving you some sort of insight into the process. Now you can see here where I've gone round this, it's mirrored on, so I'll have a careful think about what I do with that, and if I decide to separate those UVs, then I'll probably record how I do that. And remember, I left some space deliberately in case I wanted to change that. We could also cheat and shrink the hair down a bit if we needed more space, but for now that's that. I'll probably record some other sections, and I'll definitely record a little bit where I do the metal and perhaps a roughness map, so we can start having a look at different textures. Because if we look in shaded mode, it looks different again, and I could quite easily change. You see this shirt, it looks very reflective, and that ruins the whole effect of these textures. So I will be making a roughness map, and when I turn the roughness down, you can see how it really changes it. But I might want the shoes to be a bit shinier because they're leather. So yeah, we'll investigate all that, and definitely the belt, we want it to be metallic. So I will probably be painting a roughness map and a metal map, and seeing if we can maybe light the character, and maybe I'll put a watch on that's illuminated, and so on, and try and enhance the model. But that is all for now, so I'm going to save it, and I shall see you later.